Time for Media Watch next, and I'm joined by Deeptika Lohon in the studio. Good evening.
Hi, Delano.
You're starting out with Iran and the role social media has played ahead of this campaign.
That's right. Social media is off limits to most people in the Islamic Republic, but the German paper Deutsche Welle has actually penned a really interesting article looking at how there's a short blossoming of freedom of speech in Iran right now because we're in this pre-electoral, electoral period. People are jumping on the rare opportunity to use social media to ask specific questions to candidates, for instance, or express their critical views, something they're not really allowed to do outside of this period. Activists are also using the occasion to pursue long-term goals for political education. And as this user points out in the illustration, there is a real problem of freedom of expression, especially for journalists and activists in the country. What's interesting is candidates themselves are also using social media to campaign to users to express ideas about their electoral ideas, electoral platform, if you like. Even the supreme leader himself has been tweeting enthusiastically in the lead up to the election on Friday in English, in French as well, it must be said. It's ironic, given that Iranian citizens themselves are cut off from social media, that he is tweeting at this time. It must be said, though, that in 2014, Hassan Rouhani decided to authorize the use of WhatsApp, and last year he authorized the use of the messaging service Telegram.
Okay, now you've also been looking at Iran's young people and how this election is affecting them.
That's right. This election really is playing out with the young voters in Iran, if you like, and the two frontrunners couldn't be more different. On one hand, you have the moderate and incumbent leader Hassan Rouhani, who has a lot of support from the young people, as your guest was saying before, despite his inability to bring down youth unemployment, which is standing at about 30 or nearly 30% right now. Opposite him is the ultra-conservative candidate Ebrahim Raisi, and as a result, as Les Inrocks, which is a French website, says, young people are stuck between desolation and resignation. Who do they vote for? They really have no idea. And what's interesting, just on a side note, is at the Cannes Film Festival, there's a film that'll be shown on Saturday, so a day after the election, it's an animated film about the taboos of Iranian life. It's called Tehran Taboo. It's an animated film that'll trace the life of young Iranians who are struggling to express their sexuality under the country's theocratic regime.
Now, shifting focus from Iran next, you've been looking at the reactions online to the death of Cornell, the lead singer of Soundgarden.
That's right. The 52-year-old lead singer passed away on Wednesday in Detroit right after his group had a concert. Cornell was the leader of Soundgarden, which was, along with other bands like Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains, they really reinvented the grunge scene in Seattle in the 1980s and 1990s. Now, his death has been ruled a suicide by a medical examiner, and all day long we've been seeing a lot of reactions on Twitter, people flooding Twitter, people and fans, musicians like Elton John, who says he's shocked and saddened by the sudden death, and you have Joe Perry, who's from Aerosmith, who tweeted this picture of himself with Cornell, saying that it was a sad loss of a great talent in this world. You also have fans who've been posting pictures of the concert in Detroit and of themselves with Cornell. And I just would like to show you this cartoon, which is quite touching, I think, a picture of Cornell with, I guess, a very sad-looking Cornell there.
Now, there have been reactions of a different nature to another death. That's Roger Ailes, the former chief executive of Fox News.
That's right. And people have really been making the link between Chris Cornell dying and Roger Ailes. And I just want to show you this tweet. I must say there have been some very vicious tweets on Twitter all day long. This user says, if positivity goes, so must negativity. Ailes' death is the universe apologizing for Chris Cornell's passing. And it's not just people on Twitter, Delano. You have the Huffington Post, who have this running on their front page. Gropagon, they are definitely being very literal about what they thought of the Fox founder. And you have other reactions as well. Let me just see if I can pull it up. Here you go. You have this user who says Huffington Post certainly isn't playing around with that tweet, and others have been tweeting some more rational messages, like this user who says, I can't think of nice things to say about him, but there's no reason to dance on his grave. Let's show some restraint.
And yeah. Let's end on something a little less controversial now. A World War II soldier has been reunited with a sentimental object he lost during D-Day?
That's right. 73 years ago, John E. Hill, he was a 20-year-old American GI who landed on Omaha Beach for the June 6th D-Day landings. Inside his jacket pocket was a silver bracelet with his name engraved on it. It was a gift from his mom before he left, and unfortunately his jacket was stolen during combat. Well, the GI never had the heart to tell his mom that he lost the bracelet, but last February an historian found the bracelet, but obviously with a name like Hill, it took a little while to trace the person, the owner, I guess. Anyway, the historian, alongside a librarian, managed to track down John E. Hill. They finally found him. They met him via webcam and got to virtually experience the moment that bracelet was restored to its rightful owner 73 years after it got lost.
Interesting stuff. It's good for him.
Good for him.
Thank you very much, Deeptika Long with Media Watch.